You're here. We're glad you are, and I want to welcome you into another segment that is really interesting to me. I've got one of our top talents on BCSN. He's a star broadcaster for us and an all-around great guy, Mr. Francis Stevens. Francis, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Francis, you came up with an interesting theme. I thought you brought something to the surface that is very important. You wanted to talk about the pressure of young people in athletics today. You see it as a broadcaster. I see it. It is very difficult for young people. You got social media, you have Twitter, you have parents, you have fans. Take me inside what you're thinking on the pressure for young people.
Well, I think the big thing is, being a coach for 10 plus years and you work with kids on a daily basis and being able to see what, they have to go through. One, they're just going to be tough. They have to be a student first. That's the big thing. And you're starting to see it more at the young ages now where, these parents are just, as we see it, just getting so much more year round compared to what it used to be. You're getting those pressures where to perform and you want to win instead of learning the game the way I learned it from when I started playing. I can remember when I was 5 to 6 years old learning just the basic skill sets before we had to learn to win games. We didn't learn to win games until we were 13, 14 years old. This is more the tactical mindsets of things like that. But, I think it's getting really, really tough now when you start to see kids like, you look at LeBron James' kid right now, LeBron Jr. He's got every single media outlet following this kid around. He's only in sixth grade.
Right.
He's not a kid anymore. He's almost a celebrity. And he has celebrity status because his father happens to be one of the best basketball players in our generation right now. But I think the big thing is we have to kind of sit back and look at these kids are kids, and even high school kids are kids. They're going to make those mistakes, and there shouldn't have that pressure of, you have to be a Division I athlete or you have to be, going to the NBA or the Major League Baseball or MLS or things like that. We see a lot of great athletes come out of this area. Nate Washington, we could talk about that guy, All-American at Tiffin University, came from Scott High School, has an extended long career in the NFL. Guys like Griff Whalen, who played Division I at Stanford, Jim Harbaugh recruited him. He's had a long, extensive career. Those guys are very, very special.
They're an anomaly.
Yeah.
They're not the norm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we don't have a lot of that. It's really tough. We can have kids that can go on to play at the next level, but we want to have next level people like next level judges and next level lawyers and teachers and cops and firefighters and things like that. We don't have to really force the issue of my kid has to do this, and then when they don't perform they almost feel like it's a failure. But there's no failure with that. I think the best part about it is we have to kind of look at the spirit, mind, and body of how we develop these young kids, more importantly, as their time as student athletes.
Francis, that's so interesting to me because you see, and I happen to be on a number of championship teams. I had nothing to do with it. I was just in the right place at the right time as a player and a coach, and literally had nothing to do with it. But that did, as the years have gone on, that doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, it means absolutely nothing. I can't tell you the scores of the games. I can't tell you anything about the games. But what did mean something were the friendships and the associations that I made that I still have today, and the lessons that I learned from my coach about being a decent person, learning to assimilate in. Maybe you're not going to be the starter this week, but you're just going to support the guy that is starting. Because on your job in the real world, there are going to be times where you're not the star.
Absolutely right.
And then how do you react to it? You put your head down and pout and cry? Or do you try to do the best you can for your team?
Well, you have to do the best thing you can. You have to look at this, the whole full development of everything. Look, when I was at Ottawa Hills for my 2 years there, we had lost 4 games in my 2 years there. We were number 1 in the state my last year there. We were, unbeaten going into the regional final. We get knocked out of the state tournament, and the big thing for those kids, I told them, in that locker room is this is the first step of having to learn how to fail before you succeed.
Right.
Because you're going to always have failures before you can succeed. If you don't know how to fail, you're never going to know how it is when you win. And you have to learn from something with that. And I think as me being a young coach from anything else, those are things that I taught kids that they have to learn. You have to learn. There's ways and steps to have success, and you're going to have those successes, but you're going to have failures along the way with the successes. But at the end of the day, we got to have the parents back off, let these kids be kids, let them have fun, and we enjoy doing these great things here at BCSN covering games. And Kylie Keene, how intense she was last week at BG, she was pretty impressive to watch. Didn't have a really great game offensively, but what she did defensively with her effort was great.
Francis, on behalf of the gang of Positively Tom, congratulations for the great work you're doing at BCSN.
Absolutely.
And the great job you do as a coach. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Francis. Thanks for being with us today on Positively Tom.